Hello DC fans, and welcome back to Nerd Doc. The Flash has arrived in theaters, and that means it's time to explore the plot and ending of the movie. There will be spoilers for The Flash in this video. This is your spoiler warning. In addition to this Flash video, be sure to check the description below for our video covering the credit scene and what it means for the future of the DC Universe, as well as all the cameos in the movie. Since the movie is still in theaters, we can only show footage from the trailers, so please bear with us there. If you have any questions about the film, or just want to give us your opinion on it, leave a comment below. There are also chapter timestamps, so you can jump around the video as you like. The Flash is the DCEU take on the Flashpoint comic run. It's only loosely based on Flashpoint, but the inspiration is clearly there. Barry Allen's mother died when he was young, and he realizes that if he runs fast enough, he can access the Speed Force. The movie doesn't go into detail on the Speed Force and what it can do, but this basically gives Barry access to time travel and the multiverse. In the comics, the Speed Force is often described as a cosmic energy field of movement and velocity. It's essentially what grants Barry Allen his powers. The running plot device in The Flash is Barry using the Speed Force to travel back in time and prevent his mother from dying. When Barry was young, his father Henry went to the grocery store because his mother forgot a can of tomatoes earlier that morning. Just as his father was returning home, Barry's mother was fatally stabbed. The police pinned Henry Allen for the murder, and he went to jail, with both Henry and Barry claiming he was innocent. There was security cam footage of Henry Allen at the grocery store that would prove his innocence, but the video was low quality and you couldn't tell who was in the footage. The Flash begins in present-day DCEU as Jeremy Irons' Alfred calls on Barry to assist with a sinkhole incident at a hospital in Gotham. Barry runs from Central City to Gotham and saves a bunch of babies, a nurse, and a dog at the hospital. While not directly mentioned in the film, this scene shows how fast Barry can think and assess a situation, which is very similar to his speed mind ability in the comics, where he taps into the Speed Force with his brain to analyze a situation at maximum speeds. In the movie, Barry figures out the complex physics and math needed to save everyone at the hospital in a mere instant. Barry then lends Batman a hand, apprehending another bad guy of the week. The movie basically kicks off with a great Flash action sequence, followed by a solid Ben Affleck Batman action sequence, which ends with Gal Gadot's Wonder Woman making an appearance for a quick lasso of truth joke in which Barry admits he's never had sex. We get a quick glimpse of Iris, Barry's longtime crush, as well as Albert Desmond and Patty Spivot, who you could kind of call Barry's friends, although they're more than a bit toxic. We don't see much of them in the movie, but in the comics, Albert eventually becomes the supervillain Mr. Element, while Patty evolves into the superhero Hot Pursuit. Barry also gets a care package from Bruce Wayne, which has cleaned up the footage of Barry's dad in the grocery store on the day his mother died. Unfortunately, even with the crystal clear security cam footage, Henry Allen was wearing a hat and never looks up at the camera, so there's still no visual confirmation that it's him. Barry tells his dad the disappointing news, and the resulting emotions from the conversation cause Barry to anger run, which allows him to finally go fast enough to access the Speed Force. This is when he realizes he can travel back in time and stop his mother from dying. When Barry tells Bruce what he's discovered, Bruce is absolutely against any alteration of the past. Bruce warns Barry about the potential damage he can cause by making even the slightest changes to the past, claiming it could destroy everything and referencing the butterfly effect. Iris visits Barry at his apartment, and we see Barry use his phasing ability. Barry vibrates his own molecules at an atomic level to become intangible for a short time. This allows him to phase through solid objects such as walls and doors. Speaking with Iris, Barry gets the idea that he can go back in time just to make sure his mother doesn't forget the can of tomatoes, which would prevent his father from having to leave the house, but would allow Barry the least amount of interaction with the past and therefore, hopefully, not cause any significant damage to the timeline. Barry's assumption is that the person who murdered his mother did so because he saw Barry's father leave the house to get the can of tomatoes and assumed that the house was empty. When he went inside to rob the place, he ran into Barry's mother, who was using a knife to prepare food in the kitchen, then things went sideways. In Barry's mind, if his mother didn't forget the tomatoes, his father would never have left the house, and the murderer would have no incentive to come inside. Under this premise, Barry uses the Speed Force to travel back in time to when his mother was grocery shopping the morning of her death. Barry grabs a forgotten can of tomatoes and secretly places it in her shopping cart. With the past effectively changed, he heads back into the Speed Force and starts to make his way to the present, seeing the events of his childhood changing before his eyes through the window of the Speed Force. But suddenly he's knocked out of the Speed Force by an unknown assailant. Barry ends up at his parents' house, but he's not yet back to the present. He goes inside to see his parents and ends up eating with them while they comment on his new haircut and the fact that he looks older. When they ask him how classes are going, Barry realizes that his 18-year-old self is about to enter the house and rushes outside to engage him. Both Barrys spend some time in Barry's room, where older Barry tells younger Barry about their powers and the fact that he time traveled, leaving out why he actually time traveled so as not to upset his younger self. The younger Barry is much more confident and a bit more ignorant to the point of being annoying. He actually has friends now and even has a first date with Iris that night. However, older Barry soon realizes that this is the same day he got his powers, but because his mother never died and his father was never charged with a crime, he was no longer working at the crime lab where he was struck by a combination of lightning and chemicals that gave him powers. The two Barrys make their way to the lab, where older Barry tries to set up the accident just like it originally happened, but when younger Barry realizes that he has to be hit by lightning, he freaks out. During the commotion, the lightning strike happens, going through older Barry and then into younger Barry. This causes older Barry to actually lose his powers, while younger Barry gains them. Older Barry teaches younger Barry the basics of his new powers, and we meet younger Barry's college roommates who include Albert and Patty from before, who are now in a relationship and much nicer to Barry. There's a conversation during this time about Eric Stoltz playing Marty McFly in Back to the Future. In reality, Stoltz was fired after only 6 weeks and replaced by Michael J. Fox. However, in this new timeline older Barry created by changing the past, Stoltz was never fired. There were a number of other changes to iconic cinema characters, all resulting in older Barry realizing he's changed a lot more than he thought. This is when Zod shows up during the events of Man of Steel. It's revealed that older Barry actually tried to help when Zod first attacked, but since he had only just gotten his powers, he was unable to do anything beyond saving a single child. Older Barry now realizes he can simply find the other metahumans and they can stop Zod before thousands of people die. Older Barry uses the internet to discover that Cyborg is still a normal human, Wonder Woman hasn't revealed herself to the world, and may not have even left the mascara if she exists at all. Arthur Curry isn't Aquaman, and instead is just the name of his father's dog, since his father has no children in this timeline. Older Barry realizes that he's created a world with no Justice League and no metahumans. However, younger Barry's roommates do recognize the name Batman. Both Barrys go to Wayne Manor, where they discover an older man who attacks them. They soon come to find that this is Michael Keaton's Bruce Wayne. After hearing Barry's time travel story, he explains how time travel actually works. Bruce says that by going back in time and changing something, you don't just create a branching offshoot of that same timeline like you've heard in other films, indirectly poking fun at both Marvel and Back to the Future. Instead, you create a fulcrum where the entire timeline can change, with the exception of certain intersecting points that are fixed, such as Batman having an Alfred. This is why Bruce Wayne may look different, and have been born at a different time altogether, but he will always have an Alfred since that's a fixed point in every timeline. Bruce initially declines to help the Barrys, saying that Gotham is now the safest city in the world and his job is done, so the Barrys break into the Batcave and access the computer in an attempt to find Superman on their own. Eventually, Bruce comes around and provides intel about someone they think is Superman being held at a Russian black site near the Arctic. Batman and both Barrys take the Batwing jet to the black site and access the secured holding cell, only to find Kara Zor-El, also known as Supergirl. She's extremely weak, to the point where older Barry has to carry her. They eventually get her out into the sun, where she wrecks all the guards coming after them before passing out once again. When they get back to Wayne Manor, younger Barry helps Supergirl get up to the rooftop, where she dons her proper outfit and regains all of her powers from the sun. However, she doesn't want to help stop Zod because humans were never kind to her. As soon as she arrived at Earth, they locked her up in that Russian prison, so she thinks humanity is not worth saving and leaves Wayne Manor to head out towards Zod's location. Meanwhile, older Barry gets help from Bruce to set up a lightning strike and all the chemicals needed to recreate the accident that originally gave him powers. Bruce offers him an old batsuit that will help protect him from the lightning, but older Barry doesn't want it since the whole point is to take the full brunt of the lightning strike. Instead, younger Barry uses the old batsuit to create a new Flash suit seen here. Up until now, younger Barry has been wearing older Barry's Flash suit, but since older Barry is hopefully about to get his powers back, they'll need a second suit. The first attempt at getting older Barry his powers back fails, but even though older Barry is nearly dead, he asks Bruce to do it again. Unfortunately, the first strike fried the entire system, so Bruce is unable to help beyond this point. It's here that Supergirl returns and carries Barry into the clouds where he's struck by lightning again. This time it works, and the older Barry gets his powers back. Realizing that both Barrys are actually good people, and probably Batman as well, Supergirl decides to help them fight Zod and save the planet. As the movie comes to an end, both superpowered Barrys, Batman, and Supergirl all head out to fight Zod, which is a scene similar to Man of Steel when Superman is with the military and goes with Subcommander Faora Ul. The difference is that much of Zod's military might is now on display, instead of just the Subcommander in the Man of Steel version. Basically, Zod's entire force is involved in the coming battle. The plan is for Batman to stay in the Batwing to engage from the air, Supergirl will fight Zod, and the two Barrys will take on the rest of Zod's forces on the ground. Given that they're fighting Kryptonians, and Batman has no kryptonite since he just learned Kryptonians exist, it's better for him to stay airborne rather than attempt to fight them head-on with minimal prep time. Since younger Barry's converted batsuit doesn't negate the static buildup from running, he quickly learns that he can use Electro Blast to essentially shoot lightning. The younger Barry directly compares it to Emperor Palpatine from Star Wars. When Supergirl confronts Zod, she learns that Zod intercepted Kal-El's pod before it got to Earth. Zod extracted his blood thinking it was what they needed to rebuild Krypton, only to discover that what they actually needed was Kara's blood instead. Unfortunately, Kal-El did not survive, which completely enrages Kara as she brutally attacks Zod. Meanwhile, Batman is holding his own in the air while the Barrys are doing pretty well on the ground. This doesn't last long though, as eventually Batman is shot out of the sky and Supergirl succumbs to Zod, both dying on the battlefield. Younger Barry won't accept their deaths and uses the Speed Force to go back in time with older Barry. They change some things around in how they approach the fight, with older Barry warning Batman not to engage the ship that shot him down, and younger Barry helping Supergirl against Zod. But in the end, Batman and Supergirl die yet again. It's at this point that older Barry realizes this is a fixed point, and that this universe, this Earth, is destined to be destroyed by Zod. No matter what they do, Batman and Supergirl will always die during this battle. Younger Barry won't accept this as the two bicker within the Speed Force, and younger Barry continues to go back in time over and over again trying to stop the deaths, and failing each time. As this process continues, younger Barry gets more and more damage from his battles with the Kryptonians, with shards of their weapons and armor starting to cover his body as he has difficulty properly phasing through their attacks. Young Barry's increased healing factor is keeping him alive despite the wounds, but eventually older Barry, still in the Speed Force, is attacked by the mysterious figure who initially knocked him out of the Speed Force when he was first on his way back to the present. We soon learn that this person is actually the younger Barry, completely covered in shards of Kryptonian armor and weaponry to the point where he's essentially lost all the red coloring in his suit, left only with a rugged black coating. This version of the younger Barry has been trying to stop the deaths for years. He looks older than the quote-unquote older Barry, and refuses to abandon his mission to save his Earth, and in turn save his mother. This is directly parallel to the older Barry who has been obsessing over the loss of his mother his entire life. Only now that older Barry sees it from the outside, he realizes how wrong he's been this whole time. As Batman explained to him, these losses make us who we are. If Bruce Wayne never lost his parents, there would be no Batman. The original younger Barry comes back to the Speed Force, trying to convince older Barry to help him again. It's around this time that older Barry starts to look around the Speed Force to see all the various worlds of the multiverse starting to collide due to the presence of all three Barrys, and the fact that they're repeatedly trying to change a fixed point in time, which is starting to rip apart the multiverse. During this sequence, there are a plethora of CG cameos from throughout the ages, starting with the Golden Age version of the Jay Garrick Flash, and Superman played by a CG version of George Reeves, both in black and white. We then see Helen Slater's Supergirl next to the Christopher Reeve Superman, and a quick look at Adam West's Batman with sound clips from Cesar Romero's Joker. There's even a short battle sequence between Superman and a giant spider, with a reveal that this is a young CG Nicolas Cage as the Man of Steel. This is a direct callback to the abandoned Tim Burton Superman Lives movie that started production back in the mid-90s. Kevin Smith was initially asked to write the movie, but one of the big things producer John Peters requested was that Superman fight a giant spider during the final battle. The movie never came to be, but the scene here in The Flash was Nick Cage as Superman fighting a giant spider, a direct reference to Superman Lives. Anyway, fan service aside, realizing that this new Barry was actually the younger Barry trying for years to stop these deaths, The original younger Barry ends up being dealt a fatal blow as the two Barrys are fighting. This causes both younger Barrys to disappear into the Speed Force. Since they're the same person, the younger of the two dying means that the older version of that same person can no longer exist, so both of them died. As soon as these Barrys are dead, the collisions reversed and the multiverse went back to normal. Older Barry, now wiser thanks to this interaction, goes back to when he put a can of tomatoes in his mother's shopping cart. Barry speaks with his mother briefly, sharing a very emotional moment with her. He even cries, telling her that he's going to visit his own mother and that he's going to miss her. Initially, he's wearing sunglasses to cover his eyes, but his mother removes them, and there's a moment in which it seems as though his mother actually realizes that somehow this is her young boy all grown up, and that this is the last time he's ever going to see her. Now, this is not explicitly stated in the film, but there are several moments during this scene in which his mother pauses, as if she's starting to realize what's going on, accepting that this is her son, and perhaps even that she's going to die at some point, all while not revealing any of this knowledge to Barry. Barry secretly removes the can of tomatoes from her shopping cart and puts it back on the lower shelf where he originally got the can from. As he looks up at the camera, the same one from the footage that Bruce Wayne cleaned up for him earlier in the movie, he realizes that he can still fix the future without destroying the timeline. What he does here is to move all the cans of tomatoes from the lower shelf to the top shelf. This means that instead of looking down the whole time, his dad will actually have to look up at the top shelf when he picks up the can of tomatoes. This makes his face fully visible to the camera. Back in present day, Barry goes to his father's court hearing, where the cleaned up footage is shown publicly for the first time, revealing his father's face and finally setting him free. Barry goes outside as he gets a phone call from Bruce Wayne discussing how the hearing went. Barry briefly mentions his time travel troubles when Bruce pulls up in his Vision Mercedes Maybach 6 Cabriolet, and it's revealed that this is not Ben Affleck. Instead, it's George Clooney's Bruce Wayne. They have a very brief conversation in which Barry says, "Who the fuck is this?" claiming Clooney isn't Batman. To which Clooney glares at him and asks, "What's wrong with you?" in relation to Barry calling out the fact that Bruce Wayne is Batman, something very few people are aware of. Anyone who's been following our Instagram already knew about this cameo back in February, as well as a Nick Cage Superman cameo, so be sure to follow us there if you want more early rumors like these. But what it means is that Ezra Miller's Flash is currently stuck in a universe with George Clooney's Batman. Given that Clooney's Batman is generally considered to be in the same continuity as Michael Keaton's, this may not be the exact same universe as the Batman and Robin movie. There are an infinite number of universes in the multiverse, so there could easily be more than one universe where George Clooney is Batman. Nevertheless, Ezra Miller is currently stuck in a Clooney Batman universe as the credits begin to roll. So what did you think of The Flash, all the cameos, and now Ezra Miller being stuck in the Clooneyverse? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to check out our post-credit scene video in the description, where we break down what this Clooneyverse revelation means for the future of the DCEU and James Gunn's new DC universe, as well as detail the credit scene itself that features yet another cameo. For now, that wraps up this video. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please don't forget to like, subscribe, and share with someone who loves all things DC.